right, so I did mention that a special guest was going to be joining us, and so please, everybody, welcome Greg Ellis to the stream. Hi, Greg. How you going?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Oh, look, I didn't even have my microphone ready. I'm doing great. Thanks, Stevie. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Greg.
Thank you for having me on the stream. This is exciting, live. How's everything going?
Yeah, really well so far. Really well so far. I woke up this morning, so it's early in the morning here, and I woke up this morning and I thought, I really hope we can get to our target today, which has been raising $15,000 for the Great Ormond Street Hospital. And very shortly after waking up, we reached that target, and now we're up to 17,000. So I'm extremely happy this morning. Extremely happy.
Well, that's brilliant. Congratulations to you, for everyone involved with putting this together. Thank you to everyone who's donated. And can I just take a moment to say how amazed and overwhelmed and impressed I've been with the fans, with Johnny's fans. I've never experienced it. I've been in this business over 40 years, and my project started before the 2016 situation started. And I've been developing it for years, and it just so happens it coincided with what happened to Johnny. It was similar to what happened to me, so it's kind of gathered steam from there. But the fans have just been so loyal, and this particular subject is so difficult to really unpack in a way that makes sense. And I think we are sense makers, and we're trying to make sense of what's happened, why it's continued. And, I spoke with my episode of The Respondent with Kevin McNally's on later today in a few hours. And, he said, was it worth it? Was it the right decision for Johnny to fight this? And he thought initially it probably wasn't. And I know it was the right decision. It was the only decision. In fact, he didn't really have a choice in most regards, because what I think some people don't understand about the family law and divorce court is that, and I talk about it on the show, is that we think that there is justice in the legal system. We believe that fairness and morality and truth will be heard and play out. And nothing could be further from the truth than what happens in divorce court. And in fact, one of the main reasons I call my show The Respondent is because the petitioner, which is the term given to the person who files first, they concoct, egged on and incentivized by attorneys who get rich within the system, they concoct the most outlandish stories about the other person. And they're presented into law as fact. And in criminal law, you have this jurisprudence of discovery and evidence and hearsay, or heard-say, as I now call it, and it's cross-examined and talked about. And in family law, it isn't. The presumption of innocence is extinct. It's guilty. Usually men and fathers, for the most part. There are some mothers and women as well, but for the most part, what I've seen is men and fathers are guilty till proven more guilty. And if you are the black-hatted respondent, if you are all men bad, toxic masculinity fellow, you have these institutions right now of the legal system, particularly in family law, that are psychologically conditioned to believe that men are bad. The patriarch, it isn't valued and doesn't have as much importance or equal importance as the matriarch. And what we have is children, boys and girls, but particularly boys, and I say boys because I have boys and because I'm a man, growing up we're in single parent families, dead broke dads, not deadbeat dads. And it's so important that this message, my message with my show is more about the deeper dive of policy change, how to bring policy change and reform the code of family law so that the nearly $60 billion industry annually in the United States is overhauled, so that we aren't left with a generation of children with a psychological split from both parents.
Yeah, no, all fantastic points, and there's a lot of people here in the chat saying that they applaud what you're saying, they applaud what you're doing, and they agree. I mean, it's so true, and that's part of the reason for the code as well. Hashtag the code. Everybody's got to band together and make that change, you know. And it's really important what you're doing, your work over there. And we just had Dwayne from DSD on, who I'm not sure if you saw any of that, but another fantastic person really helping men out there. So, his channel has the title of Dads in it and Men, but he helps everybody. He helped Les, who's here with us today. And so it's so important, all of that work. But I have to agree. That it's so biased, and I've only really scratched the surface in comparison to what you've been through yourself, what many others have been through as well. And so even just scratching the surface, it just the bias is so obvious. And the one thing that keeps getting me, and in our discussion the other day, it was one thing that really, really got me, is that presumption of guilt over the presumption of innocence. And for something so important as for family court, where you're not just affecting a man and a woman, you're affecting children, and you're affecting people who surround them, and society overall, because it really goes to that narrative of society at the moment, which is very damaging. And we see that with what's happening with Johnny, which has amplified the message even further.
Yeah, and one of the challenges, of course, is that and I admire Dwayne. I caught a little bit about what Dwayne said. I hadn't seen his show, and I didn't know about him. And maybe I'll connect with him at some point. Bringing together the groups and organizations and movements and organizing to have a singular message around fatherhood, parenthood, families. I think the greatest civilizational catastrophe we're facing today is the breakdown of the family unit, and this torn familial tapestry that we're seeing that's pushed by our system of family law is horrific. And just understanding some of what goes on, the state associations, the state bar associations here in America are run by the attorneys themselves. So they are planting their own money trees. They're writing their own code book. That family code, or the family law code, is written by the very attorneys, retired judges and retired attorneys and judges who preside over the law. Now, this struck me when I first found out through experience as an extremely clear conflict of interest. These people write the family law code. They run plays from their own playbook. There's no executive oversight. And family law, when I found out that family law is not even answerable to the Supreme Court, I was gobsmacked. So the notion that criminals get more of a presumption of innocence than some parents in family law is astounding. And the reality is here in America, and I think it's the same. I know it's the same in South America, Canada, and the UK, and many parts of Europe. Two parents enter a courtroom. One leaves a parent, the other leaves a visitor. That can't be good for the psychological well-being of our children.
That's right.
No, it can't. And I'll go over to Les and Dan for a minute for their comments as well. But the fact that it's so important you said that, because the fact of it is, it's not based on evidence a lot of the time as well, and it's not based on any real meaningful reason for doing that. It's just that is the way that it's always gone. That's the way that the narrative has been pushed, is that women are always fantastic, men are not. And as soon as they go into the courtroom, it's man's guilty of whatever it is. He's either that or just not as good a parent, or not going to be as good a caregiver. When I find that to be so sad, because fathers love their kids just as much, just as much as anybody else, and want to spend time with them and have a relationship, and they don't want to be pushed over to the side and forgotten about. It's really, really damaging to me, and the whole family side of it. I think, at least, and I believe in the States there are a couple of states there that do automatic 50-50 custody, but it's very few and far between. And for me, I see that as the better way to go. But I mean, Les, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I just want to hello, Greg. And hi. And thank you for speaking up in the manner that you are. It's I know it's not easy from where you're standing. It's not an easy thing to be doing what you're doing. And I think I just keep thinking back to Janie's comment where she said that we, as women, we always thought that I don't want to lump everyone in, because that's what a certain unnamed person does. But for the most part, women would say we have it hard, right? Like, just because of the way the hierarchy of things. But now watching all this unfold and talking to, now that, the two genders are actually having a conversation about these things, honest, true conversations, feelings and emotions and points of view are actually starting to shift. So every time we can have a conversation about how people are actually feeling and what is actual, like the truth is what is going on, not just pointing fingers and saying, oh, men bad, women. And trust me, as a woman, I have had more experience with, female relationships, and they are out there. They are out there, and they are taking their husbands to task over something that never happened, and they're walking out victorious because they were the woman in the relationship. Like, I've seen it, I've watched it all unfold within my circle of friends. So we need to change laws, we need to change policies, we need to change how this whole thing, how we even ask questions. It just, and I don't even know where to start, because it's such a massive misconstrued thing. Like, I don't even know where you would start to change the policies.
Well, I think the first place, forgive me, the first place to start is you touched on it. I think Stevie touched on it, default shared parenting. So there are many people in America who've come together and have been lobbying and trying to pass bills in the state legislatures for default shared parenting. And what that basically is a presumption of innocence starting point. So it's 50-50 custody. And if one side wants to claim that they are deserving or the other is less deserving and have more custody of a child, then they have to prove it. And that is the Western civilization base level for jurisprudence. The burden of proof is on the accuser, not the accused. Having the burden of proof on the accused, we're back at the Spanish Inquisition and the Salem witch trials, and that's how it is right now in family law. And understanding that, why haven't these bills been passed? Well, family law is currently a 55 and rising $1 billion a year industry in America.
Machine.
And you have, for example, the only state that's passed a bill for default shared parenting is Kentucky. Why? Well, in Kentucky, it's illegal to lobby a state for a law firm or an attorney or a law practice to lobby and spend money and give money to a state legislature, to a representative. So in every other state, it's not going to pass because they're incentivized to keep this cash cow going. And I think to your point about men and women, I do talk about this on my show. I think the conversation is maybe opening up, and there was much good that came from Me Too. But, I call myself a fearless advocate for gender equity for fathers, family, and men too, or hashtag men too. Right. And when I hashtag the code is because, the Pirates movie, have a bit of rebel code about you, which it takes with this, but also to reform the family law code and understanding why the advancement, I think, even the casual observer can see since the 1970s, the advancement of women's rights has, for all its many virtues, authored a virulent strain of feminism. If you study feminism, it's called third and fourth wave feminism. It's on true equality feminism, whose effects on society have been less constructive. And this aggressive subset of malignant advocacy, defined more by a nihilistic urge to emasculate men rather than escalate women, harbors ambitions to transcend mere equality to a social dominance that its adherents are convinced will only be attained once the nuclear family has been dismantled as a foundational social institution. And the scope of the challenge of everything with regards to family law and what we're fighting here and this legal system in multiple continents is perhaps understood by appreciating that even wealthy, powerful celebrity men are subject to the punitive vicissitudes of the family law typhoon. Johnny, with whom I've worked, for over 10 years, over a decade, was himself tagged as the respondent in family law in 2016 in his split from ex-wife Amber Heard. He quickly became TMZ fodder. Yeah. Now, because of his fame, Heard went full reputation savage on her way out of the door, bringing the battle to the media and claiming he was a serial abuser.
Oh, she went full metal jacket the entire way.
Right. And it then came to light that the true dynamic of their short doomed marriage might have been something much more different. And understanding and unraveling and unweaving that post-event, months and months and months post-event, when the court of public opinion and the salacious anti-social media and lamestream media or shamestream media have all vilified the man, because why? All men bad, toxic masculinity, smash the patriarchy. And look, we men, I think sometimes we get a fair deal, and we need to be brought to task. And sometimes we're, Johnny, like me, is not a choir boy. We've made mistakes, but given what he's been through, I've been through, I have difficulty believing that while potentially guilty of some transgressions, that he is this monster of a person. And frankly, I do believe I don't like the word victim, but he is the subject, let's say, of a campaign of defamation, and is fighting. This isn't a fight that he wants to win for him. This is a fight for him. This is a fight for the people who've stood by him, his friends, the people who work with him, his assistants, his agents, his managers, even his attorneys, and friends and fans and followers, and moreover, every man like him who has been subjected to a false allegation of domestic violence. Right. It is one of the most heinous things that you can do to a man, is to accuse him of physical abuse when he is not a physical abuser, and to paint a picture in the media, the worst possible picture of that individual. And absolutely, I think demonizing masculinity is not the solution. It's the problem.
No, exactly.
And it takes any of that progress, it takes it back so much further as well. Sorry, Les, to cut you off, but I just wanted to quickly mention as well, because Greg, you were talking about the media there, and I've been talking about the media quite a lot. But there's been a couple of articles in the UK Express mentioning your support for Johnny, and now with Gib as well. I just always think of him as Gib, but with both of you supporting Johnny in one way or another. Obviously, yours is very vocal support, but I think that's fantastic to see those articles being printed, because even though people may have those thoughts, and even people in the media may have the same thoughts and share our opinions and thoughts on what's going on, they may be chastised in a way they can't actually share it. So it's been great to see a couple of those articles actually be released with a positive tone towards Johnny, and obviously mentioning your comments too, which is fantastic. And so those articles being shared around is really important, I think, because it helps to, at least in regards to the media, it helps to just add another side to it, because we've been bombarded for so long with the mainstream and with, the TMZ type tabloid media just telling us that Johnny is this and Johnny is that, and you mentioned the word monster there. That's what they're trying to make out. Yeah. But it's absolutely not the truth. And to see some of these other articles at least being released is just so fantastic. I'm sorry, Les, for cutting you off there.
I was going to say, I just very, very briefly, thank you. And thank you to all the fans, because there is pushback. My career has been adversely affected, very negatively affected. I mean, this is what happens in when you speak out on these subjects. You have this rabid group of people who are in positions of power who cancel you right away. And I'm talking in the mainstream media. And it's very, I did an interview with, I forget who it was. It may have been an Australian outlet. And I was very clear talking about, perhaps some people are beginning to question the motives and the merits behind some of the people involved in the Me Too movement. And I very specifically said some. And the next thing the headline is Greg Ellis slams Me Too movement. No, I want to do, some of what Dwayne is doing, which is provide hope and solace and recovery so people are able to move through these terrifying waves of sometimes existential terror and angst and very difficult times. But at the same time, be a realist about this. And for the most part, until the legal system changes, there is no hope. Just so people understand, in family law, a petitioner in family law is the spouse who files first for divorce. So use a particular example and you can imagine that person. They have a massive advantage before even entering the star chamber of divorce court. The petitioner usually presents a victimhood story of the worst aspects of their targeted spouse, more often than not trumped up with photoshopped evidence, outrageous allegations, embellished with spurious lies and concocted hearsay evidence. And this is the first impression a judge reads when presented with a case. Now, the respondent, already on the back foot, wearing the black hat in the eyes of the court, already perceived as the defendant. After all, a petitioner is another word for plaintiff and a respondent is another word for defendant. And the bigger the lies presented by the petitioner, the deeper the hole and more expensive it becomes to dig out of it for the respondent. Ergo, filing first is a massive advantage. And with women filing, this is a statistic, women filing first around 90% of the time, meaning men are the respondent 90% of the time. We really need remedies of therapy, mediation, psychological interventions, and information that people can get educated and come together and organize and really put this message out and say, this isn't some star celebrity who fell on a hard time. He's got a lot of money and whoa, boo-hoo, Johnny Depp. No, this is an equalizer,
Yeah, and I'm not like I don't want to insult the gentleman. Like I appreciate his work, but I am not. I am a supporter and believer first and foremost. You see it. You can see the chain of events unfold. Like on my channel, I've taken every single incident and I've unraveled it and shown where all her inconsistencies are. And the thing is, we were talking before we even started, and we're saying in 57 years. He's 57. So in 57 years, and you have so many amazing people saying such beautiful things about him that the average person can only dream of having those things said about them. And these people are just like pouring it out. They're like, Johnny Depp, great guy. He's generous. He's this, he's that. There is no way he is this monster that she is trying to portray him as, because that behavior just doesn't come out of the blue. Like he would have been like this the entire 57 years. The mask would have slipped. Someone would have seen something. You would have seen something. Something would have told you that something isn't quite right. And not one person can say that I always had a gut feeling that Johnny Depp was a monster. Not a one. Yeah, so that right there tells me that.
One of the most telling things that I had was I was conducting a series of interviews as I was engaging, and I started my show a few months back, and it's gathering steam. And I have a book that's basically exposing the cartel of family law.
I can't wait for it.
2021, and I was doing interviews. Yeah, thank you. I was doing interviews a couple of months ago. By the way, I have some really great, amazing names attached to the book. That'll be announced soon. But there was one journalist in particular, I think it was either for the Daily Express or it may have been the Daily Express in England. And he said to me off the record that all of the journalistic pool of reporters who were covering the trial, all of them agreed that, one, they all believed Johnny Depp. Two, they didn't believe a word she was saying. Three, they believed that the son would lose, but they didn't think it would be easy because it would set a precedent. And it's not just the precedent of defamation in England. This is a precedent that goes deeper to family law because of the money involved, the connections, the relationships, the judges, retired attorneys, the law firms. There is too much money involved. So it's decentralized. They want to keep it going. And frankly, these salacious stories sell papers. They keep the story going.
Yeah, and it's a better story that, well, actually, it's going to be an excellent story when the truth actually does come out. But for them right now, I'm sure that it's just a great story. It's a great tagline, like Depp, I refuse to say it, but the wife popper. Like and the fact that as soon as the judgment came out, it was almost like it was like free reign that you could call him that willy-nilly. And I just hope that he's got a little notebook in his pocket taking names of every time he hears it. He's like, oh yeah, okay. And just because you can't do that. He was never taken to task for it. He's never been charged with anything. He's never been convicted. Never been convicted. So how can we possibly call someone that when it's not proven?
It's not proven.
Well, he doesn't pay much attention to all of the noise, the tyranny of the urgent noise. He's off the grid right now. So, it's to Dwayne's point earlier on. I've read the suicide notes left behind by the good men and fathers who loved their children, and their children were the meaning of their life, and this system separated them in an instant. I've been connected recently with a couple of the movements, one particularly in Texas here in America, and fathers who are just dealing with these false allegations that you can't. It's like tar; you can't get them off. And then once they finally get to see their kids, or they finally get a judgment, which costs tens of thousands. I mean, my ex-wife spent up $1.8 million on an attorney. And the attorney, when the money ran out, left, and she just found another one and more money. So, and here's the reality. You think that having the money will bring you success.
No.
This is the one area of law where having money and a high-powered legal team you will never be. It's like waving. You can even wave the white flag and say, I surrender. And the other side will keep pounding. It's the Kafka trap. They just want you 12 feet under, 18 feet under. There's no escape from this divorce trap. And this is the stickiness of what Johnny's been stuck in since 2016. And ultimately, I think, even if there is a victory in a libel case, it may somewhat be a Pyrrhic victory, because how do you get back those years? How do you get back that time? And for all of those kids who've been disenfranchised and erased by the system and an alienating parent, how do you get back their childhoods? You can't.
Exactly.
And
sorry. I just wanted to welcome.
Welcome
Depp Project. Thank you for coming. So the Johnny Depp Project has been, Greg, just so you know, doing a whole bunch of great videos on Johnny Depp and talking about his career and all of the things that are great about him and things like that, covering Crock of Gold, stuff like that. So great supporter, and very, very happy to have you here. So welcome. And Dan, I just wanted to give you a chance, mate. I hadn't gone to you for a little while. So any thoughts from you on these topics?
I haven't been married. I haven't got any kids. But I know my uncle went through exactly what Greg was saying. He spent over £200,000 on solicitors here in the UK, and his ex-wife left the kids with him, done all of that. He raised them. Then when she filed for divorce, she called him a wife beater. And it's like, you left the kids with him. So obviously, straight away, it kind of backfired. But at this moment in time, the only thing I know of personally is my sister. She's been divorced now for 4 years. Yeah, 2016. And he left her. He kicked my sister and my niece, who at the time was 6, out of the house. They come and live with me, and they were living with me for like 7 months. But again, no, he filed for divorce, and he tried getting custody. And it's just that kind of mindset. And I'm thinking, how does this work? Like I say, I haven't been through any of it. I don't know the ins and outs and all the legal stuff. But just seeing that, I'm thinking to myself, what kind of asshole does that? It's like you were saying with the, they try and paint all these horrible stories about the person. But if they're the ones who filed for the divorce and they're the ones who left them and kicked the kids out, basically, why do they accept that in the courts?
Because the courts are full of judges who used to be attorneys at law firms, who used to service the judges who are now retired. And when you look at how much these attorneys make per hour, or solicitors in the UK, here in LA, $800 to $1,000 an hour. That's what, 600 to 800 pounds an hour. And the zero-sum game, it would be so much easier we need to keep people out of the court. How do we keep people out of court? Well, we have to have, better mediation services. Who runs the mediation services in America for the most part? The top mediators? Retired attorneys, retired judges, charging tens of thousands of dollars to mediate. So, this is so multi-layered. And until we disincentivize the system and put children's welfare first, there are people within the system that they are professionals, but they don't have the qualifications, frankly, to be able to spot something like parental alienation, or to be able to, child psychologists. They have these lists. Okay. So they have these lists of psychologists that are supposed to evaluate one side or the other, and they're independent lists. Well, these people they've been used for years by the system, by the same judges, same attorneys, same law firms who know a person, and they can get an evaluation that favors one side, then the other side does the other side. So until we get attorneys out of it, and until we understand, I think, what the psychological mentality is of what I call the reputation savage. There was a great study by a psychologist called Nikki Crick, who was at the University of Minnesota, and she talked about, in general, they did a study, and men have a propensity to move to physical violence faster in general, and women have a propensity to move to what's called reputation savaging.
Right.
And this obviously isn't true of every man and every woman. There are good men, bad men, good women, bad women. But when you looking at the history as well, I talked to a retired judge in family law who said, we need to look at people's criminal records and histories when we enter divorce court and family law, because if someone has a clean record, that will it's an indicator to say, well, they're probably a good citizen for the most part.
That sounds awfully familiar, actually, of looking at past transgressions and looking at it from that point of view. And it still didn't work out in someone's favor. But Greg, one thing, and I nearly lost it when you said it, was that you've seen the suicide notes, and this is the thing that I fight for the most, is that men are put in a position where their child support and their alimony payment far exceeds what they make, and they're behind, not because they don't want to pay, but because they can't. And next thing you know, they're being told, well, if you don't pay a certain $50,000 by the end of the month, you're going to go to jail. They're like, but I don't have the money, and the court's like, well, we don't care. This is a huge problem, because that's them seeing the only way out. We need to make stops to that. On top of I think we need to just take the whole thing, drop it on its head, and rebuild it. But this is the thing that really, because that's not benefiting anybody. The kids are now growing up without a father. Why? Because the mother wanted the money.
Yeah, this is part of, I don't know if any of you are aware, but a few years ago, there was a guy called Walter Parks in America. He's a black man who was shot in the back 7 times by a white police officer. That was the story. That was the soundbite. It was racial. Is he the
one who was running away?
Yes, he was running away. And underlying that was the issue of family law, and what you're talking about, child support and deadbeat dads or dead broke dads, is that, he had a support hearing, and the judgment was made. He couldn't afford it, but the system doesn't care, because this is how these states make their money. So it was 3,000, then it became 5,000 with interest, 8,000, couldn't pay, got sent to prison. He was in jail. Then he lost his job, got out of prison. 8,000 became 10, became 18,000. The morning that he was pulled over for a broken tail light by police, he already had the specter of death around him, because he was running scared. He couldn't make a living. He couldn't get a job. He was facing arrest again. He was facing prison. And we talk about, understandably, and we talk about the racial inequalities. But there is the underlying, which is the level playing field of humanity. This was a man who was doing his best, and there are thousands more like him. So, you know, these issues are so deeply rooted in family law. And for me, repatriating children with their erased parents and uncovering these issues of particularly false allegations. You know, someone said on a stream recently, it may have been with you, Stevie. Someone said, you know, we should be, I don't think you said it, but we should be sending Amber Heard to prison, and we should hold her accountable. And journalists who have interviewed me have said, well, should we be canceling her? And I say, well, I initially said, no, we don't want, I don't want people to be canceled. But we certainly need to call them out. And I have to admit, I'm changing my opinion somewhat, modifying it to the point where people who make false allegations, and it's proven that it's false, which is very difficult to disprove what isn't, you know.
Prove a negative.
In my case, there were photoshopped documents of comments that I'd made on social media that I'd never made, and they're received. And you go, well, how can you disprove what isn't there to provide as evidence?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was me, Greg. I think it was on our stream we talked about that, because I was talking about the petition to get Amber Heard removed from Aquaman 2. And I absolutely appreciate your take on it, for sure. But I think the way that I look at it, and I talked to Andy Signor the other day about this, about cancel culture. And to me, when somebody's actually been, and we know it hasn't happened in a court of law, but we've heard overwhelming evidence. We've seen the evidence over and over again, time and time again. We've heard her basically say it with her own voice, admit to doing certain things. And so for me, in this case, with this one particular person, I actually think it's more justified to cancel somebody like this, where there's such overwhelming evidence. But what I'm not a fan of at all is to cancel somebody based on an allegation, an accusation that's unfounded, that's got no basis in truth. And you know, and I bring it back to the very simple example of people get canceled these days for a tweet. And, you know, you've spoken about some of your issues with Twitter as well, and tweets happening. So that's the big issue I have, is people getting canceled over a difference of opinion, a difference of, you know, their thought process, the difference of their beliefs. But when it comes to somebody who's actually admitted to doing what she's done, I start to think, you know what, she probably should deserve to be canceled in a certain way, at least, or at least held accountable.
Yeah, exactly. Held accountable. Yeah. And look, I mean, to your point, Steve, you know, I recently, I think I'd mentioned it on your show, I tweeted about Ayaan Hirsi Ali and J.K. Rowling. So, you know, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, for those who don't know, was she lived in an Islamic state, an oppressive Islamic state as a child. She had forced genital mutilation. She escaped, got political asylum in Holland, became a janitor, worked her way up, and now is a member of the Dutch Parliament, and has a foundation called the AHA Foundation that raises money to give back to save young girls in a similar situation to her. So I tweet out that, and suddenly I become a transphobe, because Ayaan Hirsi Ali is supporting J.K. Rowling, who believes in the differences between biological sex, and like, we all have different belief systems. And ultimately, you know, I had some people that I'm in business with say, you know, why did you stand against the mob? Well, because I'm not who they say I am. This is why when I say one of my quotes, I am not who you think I am. You are who you think I am.
Right.
So the bigots calling me bigoted are the bigots.
That's right.
You know? And you don't bend the knee, you don't acquiesce, you don't apologize, you know, you have integrity, and if you keep fighting for what you believe in, and that's through your actions and your behavior, not necessarily just what you speak and what you say. So this is why this fight's so important, and why I'm doing the show, The Respondent. And thank you for letting me come on, Stevie, and talk about it. For all those interested in Pirates of the Caribbean, Kevin McNally will be on just less than 3 hours' time. Nice. It's a special 2-hour interview. We do talk about Johnny, and we do talk about Amber and pirates, and we get into some of the details of false allegations and the libel case and the judge. Kevin has some really interesting comments about Judge Andrew Nichol and the branch of the judiciary in England. And so I'm going to have more More people are going to be on the respondent talking about this issue, which aligns with Johnny and what he's going through, what he's been through, what he'll continue to go through, and until we bring organizations and movements together to say enough, enough. That enough is enough.
Yep.
You know, yes, the media will keep going. There will always be the salacious, sensational clickbait ratings wars to find the worst about celebrities and glorify and take delight in, you know, raising someone up and then knocking them down.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have to start valuing life and the breadth of people's lives. And one of the reasons I was called a racist was because I said every life is important. Every life has value. All lives matter. And then suddenly I'm like, I'm not allowed to say that. Oh dear, it was in a hashtag. Oh my God.
Get rid of him, cancel him.
More important thing could be
exactly what he goes like.
But just in life, like what more important thing could be said than every single life matters? It astounds me. It really does astound me.
Well, thank you, Greg, for the work that you're doing. It's so important. And I think bringing this to light has been, you know, a really important part of this movement. Like, it's not just fans, these are supporters. I laughed in the Hollywood Reporter article. They said that this was fans with no principles. There was nothing. So it's nice that it's catching up. And I think the work that you're doing and the awareness you're bringing to it is going to be a really, really big piece of the puzzle. So thank you.
Oh, please, you're more than welcome. This is a fight and a show that I will be doing till the day I die. This, the respondent.com will be launching soon. And I have to say, you know, I've been in this business for, over 4 decades now. And sometimes you get busy and it's hard to connect with fans and fandoms and groups of people who admire movies you've been in or projects you're involved with. I have been so bowled over by this, by the organization, by the support, by the individuals, by everything that everyone is doing. You know, we've only just met, but I can imagine how dissecting that, the situation and playing videos and doing live streams. I have Todd Lander, he's a very respected attorney here in Los Angeles, the head of the litigation department at Freeman and Smiley. I just started a series of live streams with him. So he's going to get up to speed on the case, and we're going to talk more about that as we move towards the next case on May 21st.
That'd be amazing, I will.
That's great.
I think it's great to listen to.
We have, Johnny, a lot of his motivation was for his children. And I think that gets lost a bit in the celebrity and all the mess of it. But, he was out there to clear his name for his kids. And I think that's not talked enough.
When I was asked by a journalist, I think it was a journalist for the Daily Mirror, and it was the second time I'd been asked in the day, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? And I said, his children. So that he can sit down and look his children in the face without fear in their eyes and without them wondering, without them questioning. This is a full-on reputation savage and who needs to be called out, who needs to be brought to account. And no amount of money. I mean, think about that. It's your children. Mm-hmm. How much would you pay to protect your reputation, to defend it, to have integrity, to be able to look them in the eye? And for me, my fight went for so many years, and I've lost my children's childhood. It's gone. I don't see my sons. So with the respondent now, I fight for others. Yes, the Johnny Depps of the world, but also the people who can't afford the legal system, the people who represent themselves. Mm-hmm. There are so many tens of thousands of forsaken fathers and dead broke dads and people who don't have the ability to understand this system and work their way through it. So, I just thank you all. Steve, I thank you for everyone who's donated. Thank you for all of your kind words. It's so lovely to meet. And it says CGS, but I'm going to call you Boyo because it sounds like you're from Wales, right?
I am. There we go. I'm the Welsh boy.
I have a little Welsh heritage in me as well. It's well, it's nice to meet everyone.
Well,
Stevie,
look, and you said thank you to me, mate. But and I know you got to get going, but I just want to say a massive thank you from me as well. You know, everything that you've done. I mentioned the articles now that are out. There is some media covering the positive side to this, you know, with people speaking out like yourself. You're going to have a great interview with Kevin. I'm really looking forward to that later on. Everybody should definitely go over and check that out.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out Greg's website, The Respondent, if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, please go over there and check all of those things out. Support Greg in this great fight that he's standing up for everybody and standing up for everyone who he doesn't have justice. So thank you, Greg. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Stevie. Nice to meet everyone, and have a great rest of your Sunday. And Merry. Are we allowed to say Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas
On this stream? You can. Absolutely.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
And a special shout out to everyone who's in the UK under these horrific lockdowns and everything that's going on and being separated from family. It's, you know, it's very difficult right now with everything, with social isolation and. So I just love this atmosphere you've got going on. So I'm going to let you get back to it. Thank you, Stevie, for letting me jump in.
No worries. Thank you for coming. Thanks a lot, Greg. See you later.
You.
Bye, everyone.